Welcome in New York and welcome back to the Post 90 podcast. We've got a lot to talk about here today. Obviously, since we last spoke, we've had a few different things come up, whether that's the badge refresh or the DC United game last night. And we took a bit of a break too while the club took their international break. So a little bit of rest and relaxation is always good. We're now 28 games into the season. The hair might be a bit longer. The faces hopefully may be a bit slimmer, God willing. But as far as, I guess, the on-field product with NYCFC is concerned, it unfortunately is feeling a bit too same old for me coming out of a break.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the performance itself, I'm not necessarily too upset about it, especially when, the refs have such a big hand in the result of the game for both sides. It's tough to look at this one and be too critical, but at the same time, it's like these are the games where you have to find that extra little something to go on and get a win, because we're headed into a buzzsaw at home of Miami next week.
And we've got Philly on the midweek, I believe, too.
Philly on the midweek. And so these are the games where, you can't let one goal decide it. You can't leave with a single point. I know it's an away game, but it just, like you said, just a little bit too much of same old.
Yeah, and to me, the biggest thing that jumped out was afterwards with Nick Cushing in the press conference saying something alluding to the fact that we're lucky to, get points leaving DC. And that's just, the type of mentality that I really don't think is something that you should probably be prescribing to the players, certainly throughout a break. But even in the locker room after a game like that, I feel like I would prefer him to be really fiery and upset towards the refs, but also kind of upset towards the players not being able to, again, close out a game where we end up going up first. And he kind of hailed DC or their stadium and their atmosphere as something that it's good to get something from. I went and looked at DC's record. They've only won 4 games out of their 19 games at home this year.
Yeah, no, and when you're talking, you're speaking to luck, and we're lucky to do this, we're lucky to do that. Let's say that that's the case, which I deeply disagree with. But let's say it's the case that you're going into a place where you don't, away teams don't win often. They're not getting results. Taking off your most dangerous player at the 60th minute is simply unacceptable if you believe that you're going to be lucky to leave with a draw. That is simply something that should never happen. But it did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, for a guy that's not good.
Right.
That's not shown to be an effective player in the games.
As effective as Alonso.
Most effective in the league almost.
Mm-hmm. And using the luck language, is taking agency away from not only your ability to manage as a coach. I mean, in his case, it's helping him because he's saying we got unlucky, and that makes up for what would be potentially shortcomings on his part. But it's taking away agency from the players too, that they, if we win, is it always luck when we win? Because it seems like it's always unlucky when we lose.
Right.
So there's two sides to the coin, and I feel like it takes a bit away from the performances. I mean, we did have some players that were playing at a level that we would expect from them. I would think somebody like Santi, obviously he goes and finishes the Panenka. We were trotting around the Big E during the game. We had to do a rewatch before we recorded, but when that happened live, we were concerned that maybe something would have carried over from the penalty shootout in the Leagues Cup where him and Maxi both missed. Cold as ever from Santi. And just overall throughout the game, I thought he looked good. And then somebody like Tavon too, down that right side, he is fully the dual threat back that we've needed on this team, especially on the right side. Now, he's developed into that, something that we've wanted for a long time since Anton Tinnerholm's first injury that made him never kind of play the way that he used to.
Right, and just going kind of to, us going around the Big E and, getting bits and pieces when we can when the cell service decides to work, because there's a billion people in one place. Seeing Matt Freese in the lineup was something that I didn't expect. I don't think you expected. Everything leading up to the game sounded like, it's a 2-week turnaround time, and this is 13 days in, that Matt Freese was not going to go, and he ends up turning up, and he had a good performance in my opinion, especially for somebody who has a sprained MCL, I think it is.
Yeah, that's just wild.
Like, that's an insane performance, so you got to give kudos to him if you're going to give it to anybody. I think there was a lot of players that did have, like, shaky moments in the first half that could have been very, very advantageous to DC, but they just weren't good enough to take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm. And, like, one of those players, too, is Tana, who ended up not being who was in the chosen 11 for Cushing on the day. Obviously, Burke goes and re-aggravates his injury in training, which is horrible because otherwise I think for a few games now we've put out what we believe to be our best 11. So we should be able to get results with our best 11. And honestly, we should be able to get results with our best 10 and one guy subbed in that was brought in to be the depth at our center back role when needed. Yep. And it was kind of shocking to me too. The announcers called out that this was his 8th game starting this year, which just seems like so much. If we're at 28 games of the season, he started a 4th. I think that'd be a 4th. Like, that to me kind of put on a flashlight that, like, we should have better depth. 100%. If we're going to have a third center back that's going to start a 4th of our games throughout the season, like, it is insane to have it not be somebody that can be, like, proficient when they step on the field. Like, it has costed us points. Yeah. Directly, he has directly cost us points throughout the season. Not that he did in this game, but like, that was one of the players that I did think was shaky at the start. To be fair to him, he also probably found out half an hour before the game that he's marking Benteke. So, you know, it is what it is, but that is kind of what went off in my head when the lineup switch happened.
And then, you know, kind of talking about some of the players or the factors that, you know, had an effect on the game. It's difficult to not speak on refereeing decisions, especially when there's huge VAR decisions that go against you. Like, that Martinez goal was
clearly onside.
Like, and if there was some reason that it was ruled off, like, obviously they saw something
earlier in the play, yes.
Whatever it was, whatever led to them calling that off, it's so bad. That's so bad for the game.
It has to be addressed with the viewers and the fans, like, because now we're coming away from it, and all of our fan base is coming away from it like the refs suck. So, like, if there was something that led you, I just wish there was more explanation. I like the explanation on DC's goal that got called offsides. It wasn't the fact that the player that scored the goal was offsides. He was actually on, but it was a player that was offsides set up an illegal pick on Keaton, and like. Now they do the NFL thing this year where the center ref has to come and tell the stadium what happened. But, like, we don't get something like that for Alonso's goal. It was weird.
It just, I don't know. If we haven't yet, we need to switch to the part where if it's not a part of your body that you can score with, it shouldn't be offside. Mm-hmm. Like, I think when I looked at it again, you may be able to say that his shoulder was off, or his arm or whatever it was. You know, shoulder, I think you can technically score with. Your arm, you can't. But then you also have to, I think that they should go a step farther and say if the ball was played on the ground and your head is slightly off, that shouldn't count either because you can't realistically score with your head in that position.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be an intelligent review of the play. I just don't think that exists in the league right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that comes right before half too, and it's obviously earlier in the game when it's at the 45th minute, and to put a second goal to try to call that like a dagger is a funny thing to do, especially when we were just talking about.
Like it would be that.
Yeah, it did in the moment. In the moment, rewatching it, it felt like that probably would have shut DC down for the remainder of the game. I know we talked a little bit about Leeds slipping away from us, but it felt like we had kind of a firm hold. We would have had a firm hold on it after that, and then instead it takes away a lot of probably motivation and like vibes that the guys would have otherwise had. And then we kind of slip into the second half that was worse than the first half that wasn't great to begin with.
Right, yeah, and you think about just the way that would have played out, because it would have been, you know, DC giving up a pen, scoring, getting a goal taken away from them, and then a goal on top of that. Like, to me, there's not many teams that can overcome a series of events like that, and then going directly into halftime, you know, not getting a chance really to respond after. It would have just been in my opinion, yeah, like you said, it's tough to call it a dagger because there's so much soccer left. But like,
and
it's hard to say anything else about it.
yeah. Well, we've also allowed teams to pull daggers out of themselves and like kill us with them.
Yeah.
So we are in a way not clutch to the way that we need to be anyway. So the dagger word is tough, but it would have obviously had an impact. Us scoring another goal before halftime would have had a major impact on how that second half played
Would
out.
have changed our relationship with the game.
Yes, indefinitely.
Yes.
And even on top of that, like, I think we should be creating more goals regardless. DC, I think, in the Eastern Conference has the most goals against in the conference. Like minus 59 or something.
Yeah.
Or not their differential, but they've just had 59 goals scored on them, which is just, if we can't score on a team like that, then I don't see how we can get into the playoffs and score against a team. I don't know how in past games we put like 2 past Columbus and then we go to DC, and we were away at Columbus too. I don't know how we go to DC with seemingly worse team or a better team because we didn't have Julian and we didn't have all the subs that we had in during the Columbus game, and like we look worse than we did in other trying moments. It's just like an issue of consistency kind of across the field that we repeatedly run into like every single season, every single swing of results. It's always like consistency is the top line issue.
Yeah, and one thing that we're consistent at is not finishing the chances that we do create. So if we sit there and we create 6 chances and put away one of them, and that's a penalty, that's not good in terms of overall confidence. Like you look at, the pass into O'Toole in the middle that ultimately turns into a pen. Luckily for us, because otherwise we would have left with nothing. But even in that play, a confident player takes that first time and puts it on goal at least, right? And luckily, again, bailed out by the penalty. You have the Hannes chance in the beginning where a confident player takes that on the volley and puts it on target at least.
Yep.
Instead, he tries to take too many touches. You go to, the Alonso chance later in the game where he pulls it wide and then gets subbed out a couple minutes later. All of these things are, a confident player, a confident team are at least putting these chances on frame and most likely finishing at least half of them. But like you said, we just run into the point where we aren't consistent. And we allow these streaks to happen where we go, under 2 goals for many games. It just sucks.
Yeah, well, and I think too, I saw in Kevin O'Toole's pre-game press conference, so this would have been Thursday or Friday before last night against DC, he called out that during the break, like the team's point of emphasis and Cushing's point of emphasis was to find ways to make sure that we're keeping the intensity keeping the intensity that we bring to the field in like the first half of games or in the first 80 minutes of games throughout the whole thing. And it just, to me, it's crazy to kind of have a game play out exactly the way that emphasis would be trying to combat.
Right.
Like how could that have been the point of emphasis that we drilled for 2 weeks over the course of an international break? Obviously we have, I think, 2 or 3 guys that were gone with their teams, but they ultimately come back and still get to train. How are things not getting through? Like if that was this is the one thing that we're gonna do right for these 2 weeks, and then like the first opportunity in live competitive play, like you're not doing what we just drilled for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean that could be a result of stamina coming off of a break, and I mean to me, if you're not playing an international play, you have no excuse to not be at top fitness because you're literally taking a break,
right?
Training every day as if it's preseason. You should be as fresh as possible, or you were too intense in the first half, running too much unnecessarily, and now you're winded. So if that was a point of emphasis, like you said, I didn't quite.
Yeah,
I'm not.
So confused.
It's kind of when you're in a work meeting and they're telling you like, yeah, we're gonna focus on this and that, and then throughout the week you're just like, did you guys forget or like?
Or you know what it's really like. I don't know if this ever happened to you in like elementary school, where like maybe you get in trouble one day because you didn't do your homework, so the teacher like sends a note home and they're like, Adam needs to do his homework. So your dad's like, I'm gonna check your homework.
Yeah.
You're gonna sit at the kitchen table every night and we're going to do the homework. We're going to check to make sure it's done, and then you're going to go to school. And like that lasts through Thursday.
Yeah.
And then until another note comes home, like we're not going through that 3-day period of homework checking again.
Right.
So I don't know if there's just no, I don't even know what you would call it. Like the management staff isn't enforcing it in the moment. Maybe at halftime. Like what I would want to know what the conversations at halftime were.
That could have been the reason for some of the subs, is what I was thinking. Like, O'Toole's not keeping up with the intensity that Cushing likes, so he puts in McFarland.
Yeah. Same thing. I saw Ojeda for Maxey too.
Right. I saw that more as, O'Toole is still somewhat coming back
That's
from
what
something.
I saw.
So it's, McFarland's there to give him a rest. The Alonso one, I couldn't find a single reason to take him off. Like, that is the craziest decision of the day.
I think I don't know. This could be like crazy to say, but maybe like Cushing knows that the fan base wants subs. Like I around like the 60th minute, like if you go on NYCFC Twitter, right, we could be winning a game 3-0, we could be losing a game 4-0. There will be a loud majority of people saying, "Why have we not made any subs yet?" It's 60th minute, and I don't know if that is a byproduct of us living through the Ronnie era. Which, by the way, if Ronnie was not making subs until the 80th, and we are the only manager that we've won a cup with, maybe there's something to that. But regardless, like every 60th minute of every game, regardless of script, like people will be crying about subs, and I don't know if he feels pressure at all to make subs at a time. That to me, it really just felt like a tinker at a tinker moment. Like Alonso didn't appear tired, gassed at any moment. And
he was the most dangerous guy on the field.
Yeah, and before the break, I felt like we went through a process of ramping Alonso's minutes up. He started off, obviously, this season as the sub, scoring more goals than anybody in the team in a fraction of the minutes. I think he led the league. He led the league in goals per 90. And we spent time, especially over the course of the Leagues Cup, ramping him up to be able to go 85 to 90 minutes. Yeah. So I don't know how after you ramp him up to that level and then you kind of maintain the fitness for a 2-week break. He didn't leave on international break, I don't think. Or he might have, actually.
O'Toole?
No, Alonso. He might have been with Costa Rica.
Was, yeah.
No, Alonso.
I meant Alonso.
Alonso. Okay, he was. Okay,
in my brain I said Alonso, but out loud I said O'Toole. Yeah. Again, double down on it. Yeah.
Okay, so he didn't get a full break, but still, like...
Who cares?
He also he didn't play the first full 18 games of the season.
Yeah.
So, like, he doesn't have the same wear and tear on his legs.
Right.
And that it is noticeable on the pitch. Like, there was no fitness holding him back on the field.
My thing is, if that's what Cushing is doing, and he's doing the thing where he's like, well, you guys want subs, so here you go. Like, that's missing a mark on a level of, like, people asking companies, like, we would like you to do something in support of pride and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And their response isn't to, like,
donate money
to politicians that are actually going to put things in motion to help people.
Yeah.
We're just going to change our profile picture for a month.
Yeah.
Like that's missing the mark on that level.
Yeah.
And so if that's true, I know it's a theory of yours, it's probably not, but that would be missing the mark on a level that we have not seen.
And there's other way, like that's an extreme level of incompetence, but there's other levels of incompetence that it could be like he's just like, well, like the last 5 minutes, Alonso, it didn't look great. So like, why don't we just run Baki? Like, why don't we just, and maybe somebody's like, why? He's like, well, Baki needs minutes.
If I like,
you know what I mean? Like, what else?
I couldn't deal, like, I could not deal with the fact that we are doing well, this guy needs minutes at game 28. Like that it's beyond that point. We need to hone the best 11 possible, get them the most chemistry possible, and let them play as much as possible before the playoffs, and hope that we make it. Mm-hmm. That's the position that we're in. We are not in a position of like, well, we can get this guy going, and if we get that guy going too, that's going to be good. Absolutely not. You have to think about back when Hebert was coming back from his knee injury, and we were in a similar position. Ronnie was not being like, oh, we got to get Hebert up and running. It was like, Hebert is there if our striker dies.
Right.
Like, that's the mentality we need right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thought experiment though. It's like trying to figure out what makes that sub happen in Cushing's brain. Like that has to be the only, because we know he's a proponent of doing that. Like throughout the season, that is something, and says as much in his press conferences. He has before, not in this one, but he's been like, oh, I know Kevin's back from injury, back when he had one of his first hamstrings. Like, but I want to get him back in the lineup now. Like, I have a hard time thinking of a single good reason to make that sub.
The only one I can think of is Alonso may not have been pressing with as much intensity as he wanted, and he knows Moonsef will.
Yeah, you could say that, but then I don't think that is worth the trade-off.
No.
And maybe that's where our brains differ from Cushing's.
Right.
And the jury's out on which brains we would rather have up top in the pitch, right?
I don't think, I will say this, as much as people have called for Nick Cushing's job, I don't think if we threw a poll, if we're like, hey, hear us out, what if post 90 was the head coach, that anyone, we would receive a single vote.
I think if it was just between us versus Cushing,
yeah,
I think we would win. And I think there would be people that have never heard us say a word, they've never seen our faces, they don't listen to podcasts, period, and they would be like, I'm voting for not Cushing.
for now.
Submit, lock it
Fair
in,
enough.
it's over.
Fair enough.
But I just think in this one moment, like I don't see, there's absolutely zero reason behind putting Baki in.
Yeah.
You take away the clinicalness of Alonso, you take away his opportunity to potentially build confidence. Like what if he does end up bagging one? And it would be a massive moment for both him and the team to go and secure 3 points at an away game. So, that's horrible. Ojeda for Maxi, I guess, makes sense. Maxi's going to come off in games.
Yeah, you want a guy that's going to be able to run. Yeah,
and I think people should be a little bit happy that it wasn't 3 to 5 full subs of like defensives to lock the game down.
Yeah.
We had Pereira for Hannes, but that made a lot of sense with the game script because Hannes was kind of invisible anyways.
Yeah, outside of that early shot, we really didn't have much.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on the game before we try to be as brief as possible on the logo situation.
Not much more. I think the only other thing maybe we should touch on is Sands. Should we touch on Sands giving up the penalty? There's not much commentary to be.
There's not much. I just think it's a difficult position because you're kind of in trouble for your own momentum, which is very difficult to stop yourself, especially when you're sliding, to not injure yourself or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough position to be in, and I don't think he necessarily expected to be in that position.
Yeah.
It's tough, it sucks, but...
And to have Tavon right behind him, it makes it look much worse in hindsight.
Yeah.
Which is not something that he probably would have or could have been fully aware of in the moment.
Yeah.
So I saw some people kind of putting that against him, and it's like, these things happen in like a split second, and he's thinking like, I need to make the play.
Right.
Because if I don't know if we're going to concede here, we're going to give up points. And he's not like, Tavon is right behind me to take the ball in the stomach.
Right.
So.
My thing too is I'm trying to picture it, but I think he was basically in trouble because he took away the landing space for the player. Like, I don't think he necessarily cleaned him out.
Yeah.
It was more like, okay, I can't land anymore and your foot's there and now I'm fouled.
Yeah.
So it sucks. It is what it is, though.
To say a lot, the ref didn't card him at all for giving up a penalty.
No.
And
the announcement for it was so funny. He goes, the player on NYCFC Sands committed a foul in the box. It is a penalty. And as an NYCFC fan, I was like, that sucks, but that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a hilarious way to find out.
And like, it's a card didn't come.
Imagine that guy just like told you all the bad things in your life. He's like, on the way home from work, your mother did get hit by a car.
It's like John breaks bad news on TikTok.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to hold it to Sands. It is what it is. And our team should have been in a position where, a pen at that point doesn't really kill us, but it did.
Yeah. So the brand refresh.
Yep.
I think in general, I don't really care that much about the change in the logo.
So it'll be a quick comment though.
Yeah, I mean, I think what and I don't know if we differ at all here, but like I think the big contention in the fan base is that it seems like the FO lied to a few key people within the supporters group, which unfortunately is not something out of the norm, which is not great to say.
Yeah.
We personally don't, we aren't part of those conversations.
And we never will be.
Yeah, and we never will be, and I don't think, we're really interested in being, but, if that is the case, that's pretty shitty. But, like, at the same time, I think we maybe care a bit too much about, about them, like, making decisions at times, because, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't make such a big change to just kind of minorly change the badge, and they've kind of shown their colors in a few different ways. So not to say giving up on doing the things right, but like I think somebody had said like picking battles is an important thing to do, and that's what I feel like is my thought as well.
I think for me, like, our badge is history. It's literally the only history that we have. It's the only thing that's been consistent over the years. Mm-hmm. So there is a part of me that understands, if I'm somebody that got that tattooed on me, I've invested thousands of dollars in merch. It's something it's a flag I wave every single weekend. That does matter. And I kind of go to the point of like, what was the point of it? Like, if it wasn't a drastic change, mm-hmm. then what was the point? It just kind of seems changed. Like, I'm a key offender of this, but like change for the sake of change. Blowing up the letters, changing.
I think they just removed the white circle and blew the letters up.
Yeah.
Which does. I didn't think about it that way. That does feel shitty. Like if you're just making a minor change and it's just for the sake of change, or because everybody that has a jersey now doesn't have an up-to-date jersey, and that may drive more sales. Like that is pretty. It's kind of like pulling the rug out from everybody.
And like you could have waited a year and made it, for a 10th anniversary.
Mm-hmm. Or during the off season.
Right, during the off season.
It's important to push during this time period.
And then like, if you weren't gonna actually take people's opinions into account, why even tell them? Like, because they weren't asking you to. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the end.
Well, I think they said that.
Well, yeah, like in the end, people are gonna be asking for like, why didn't you bring me into it? Mm-hmm. But it's better to be like, why didn't you bring me into it, than say you brought me into it and you didn't even take what I said into account.
Yeah.
Like that's what feels shitty about it. Ultimately, it's gonna be something that in 3-4 months, it's not even gonna be a conversation. Like at this point, it's just reality.
Yeah.
But there's just a stink to it that you flustered so many people
for no reason.
For like bumped up letters. And I'll be honest, if the badge now was the badge originally, I don't think that we as a club would be in the position that we're in, because it just looks like kind of looks a little corny.
Yeah.
Like it seems.
It's like the whole modern thing where
it just seems G League.
You simplify it, and it looks like an esports logo or something.
Yeah. I feel like an intern was like, I'm pretty good at rebranding shit. Like, do you want me to? I could mess with this, and somebody's like, yeah, whatever.
Well, I think the sad thing is it might be even worse than that. Like, who knows how many millions of dollars they paid to like some branding agency to like spend out. Who knows how many months on it? First off, after telling us with the color and the branding refresh that we saw with all the icons that they've had at the stadium and stuff, which to be fair is kind of cool, but like they spent however many months to be like, we clicked increase letter size by 50%, right, and we deleted the white line, and they're like, write the $3 million check.
Right, and the amount of money that we would have spent on new trademarks, copyright, all of that stuff, working with Adidas, mm-hmm. probably paying an arm and a leg to change something mid-season, like, all to just do what they did. To me, it just feels so pointless. You piss people off for no reason. You've costed people in their minds money. I think to the people who have the OG tattoo, like, you have a piece of history on you. Mm-hmm. So to me, that almost like upgrades your tattoo. That makes it cooler to me. But at the end of the day, like with tattoo specifically, it's whatever you feel. So
that's what I thought.
You're
that was
valid
like,
if you feel that way.
I think we both have the uncanny ability to cope ourselves into being okay with anything. So like as soon as it happened, that is the first thing I thought. I was like, all the shit I have is now retro. Let's go.
Yeah, instantly.
And like new fans getting in and new people, like, will not have this.
Unless they're paying me for it.
Yeah.
I charge a lot.
Yeah.
Like this, right here in the middle of my chest.
Exactly.
Like, this is retro now.
And I don't know if that is just to be like, it's okay that you have $800 in NYCFC gear.
Yeah.
My brain telling myself that. I don't know. I don't know if it is really a good thing or if it's a cope thing. But
on the flip side too, though, like it all means nothing. Our support for the club is still there. You support the organization, not, they could change it to just a circle.
Right.
A blue circle, and I'd support it. I'm not moved by it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that sums it up. I mean, I feel like that's honestly where a lot of people are. I think they don't, the brand refreshes or what it actually ended up looking like isn't as important as like kind of the way that it was done, where it's like small changes to upset a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, like that hat will not look as cool with the new rebrand. Like it just won't.
Yeah. I mean, nothing will. Nothing will look as cool. Flags, our old championship t-shirts, like none of it would have been what it is. But I think making it being retro now is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my saving grace.
I don't know, like if it was me, not to be like one of those TikTokers where it's like, what I would have done to rebrand this logo. But you just drop everything but the monogram and the words.
Yeah.
And you just keep it like super OG.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see any, I like to live by the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But
yeah.
It is what it is.
Yep.
I don't think moving forward, fans will most likely get as much say as it feels like we were accustomed to in the past, whether or not it was genuine at the time, which is a shitty thing to come to terms with. But I think things like this, unfortunately, will be more commonplace, especially with like we have to consider the fact that we're owned by CFG. So like dollar signs is what runs their world. And this is from like top down. Like not only is it a brand refresh, but it's like Tati getting sent to Girona for free.
Yeah.
Not rotting there, but like living there for a year and then getting dumped to Milan, and like we do end up with a fee, but like we were kind of out on our asses for 2 years for nothing.
Yeah.
And like this is something we've seen with a few different transactions that have happened. So it's like a top-down thing.
Yeah, I just think as a fan base, we have, the one response we can have to this is stop allowing them to lie in our face publicly. Because they will sit there and they'll put up promo videos and be like, this is the most inclusive, this club will take your advice and all this stuff. When we've known that's not the reality for a long time, and we'll sit there and celebrate it as if it's true. We can no longer do that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I would say going forward. Stop letting them use us as a lie. If they're not taking our advice, they're not going to be able to promote that without all of us being very loud online.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been loud.
It's been loud.
Yeah. And I'm sure it will continue to be loud with every decision that's made in the future. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. We have good things to look forward to as well.
Hopefully the playoffs.
Hopefully the playoffs. We've got 7-8 games left now. We've got stadium coming in a few years. I'm guessing that is what forced the brand change to happen now. Like I think they're going to do the groundbreaking thing later in the season, and they want the branding that will be on the stadium present for like the whole course of, because they're going to put like a montage together like how the NYCFC stadium happened.
Fair enough.
I don't know. So whatever, they felt pressure to do it. I think like you said, not getting too upset with them, because when there are big things in the future to get upset about, like I think we all as a collective will be able to make our voices heard. And we've got Philly on the weekday, and we've got Miami on the weekend. So 2 behemoths of clubs. Philly, at least in our past, have been that, and Miami at the moment with Messi Mania are insane. I think he just scored 2 goals against Philly.
Yeah, well, so
week.
argument for us, we were not the argument, but the reason we were looking at it is because Messi playing or not playing, as we've said, it weighs super heavily on the fact of whether we go to the game or not, and that seems a little like fair weather,
Right.
but it's just the fact that we spent so much money to go to Post Malone.
Postpone.
And so we will go if Messi's going to play and make it a super long day. And then I go, did Messi play? And I check and they go, oh yeah, he scored 2 goals.
Yeah, I think he had 2 goals
and
and
that was
an assist.
before halftime.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, we're most likely making the trip.
Against Philly too.
Yeah.
So I think I signed up for credentials today. So
Okay.
we'll see how it goes. I'm assuming we'll be there. I'm assuming Messi will be there.
I'm assuming so.
And it will be a meeting of the minds at New York City. At Yankee Stadium.
And, most likely we'll be
Taking an L. Is that where you're
most
going?
likely we'll be driving 2 hours down there.
Yeah. And we will have, I was going to say, I thought you were going driving home, but the drive home be like, we will have ulterior motives at the Post Malone concert to consume more than we had previously
Yeah, intended to. maybe.
intended to. And really it's crazy because it goes both ways. Either you're celebrating or you're coping.
Yeah. Coping or celebrating, it's going to be one of the two.
Yeah.
I hope, in my brain, Thiago's a madman. He can maybe have a little something for Messi.
Put him down.
I just feel like if there's a moment where we need a madman named Tana, it's to bust up Messi.
What did that guy say in that TikTok? This cannot be how the season ends. This cannot be how Messi ends. It can't be at the end of Thomas Savage.
Yeah, imagine he retires Messi.
That's my goal. That's my goal before people get outraged. That's my goal. I would hate to see that happen, but I would love Messi to do nothing in this game. More than anything.
I don't know who my goat is, but
Well,
That'll-
probably Garnacho.
oh yeah, obviously. No, obviously it's Lukaku.
Lukaku. I mean,
No.
I would take him on our team tonight.
Yeah, I would.
I would, yeah. Depay I would take. There were many ex-United players that I would
Di Maria.
give an arm and a leg to be on this team.
Yeah, I'll probably do it.
Jesse Lings.
Oh, Lingard,
When that rumor existed for 2 days,
the happiest man I was.
it was the best.
The idea of hitting
Yeah,
at home.
different.
So yeah, that'll do it for this week. We will obviously be back probably after Miami.
After Miami.
Uh,
Maybe another car episode after Miami. I don't know why, but
Maybe.
it might just be in the cards.
Yeah, just
I feel those vibes. Like,
well, just yeah.
I'm feeling instant reaction after Miami is going to be needed, one way or another.
Yeah, we'll be in a frantic state,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Which makes for good podcasting
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys next week. Follow us anywhere that you get a podcast. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. That's the best place to
Chat.
chop it up with us. And we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.